Welcome to the greatest fight podcast on the internet. This is Minimal Effort MMA with my name, Brendan Gleason.
And I'm Luke Denman, where we know so much about MMA that we don't even have to try.
This is our first show that we're putting up, and I just wanted to kind of give everybody a background into who we are. I'm a 27-year-old factory worker. We live in the Midwest. We all have, I have a family, and we're just kind of like to hang out with our friends, and we love MMA. That's kind of why we started doing this.
And I, as I said, am Luke Denman. And if you know of any work, please let me know on my Facebook, because I am currently unemployed. I am in the National Guard and an American hero, and I would like to welcome you all thanking me for my service. We are here in the dungeon, the apartment of Mike Schroen, our producer. Brendan, did you know that Mike ranked third in Indiana State wrestling in 1998?
I know that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that if you looked at Mike, you would think that he was.
It'd be sweet if it was true.
Oh yes, definitely. Just starting this new podcast, we kind of want to let fans just get a feel of our opinions on topics each week. We'll come into the show each week and give you the knowledge that we haven't given you from the last podcast, but it's going to be very opinionated. So you may hate us, you may love us, but just know that it's not anything but an opinion based on Luke and I.
Brendan, I think to call what I have an opinion is very unfair, because just the nature of an opinion would mean that it varies from person to person. What I have is correct knowledge,
all right.
Undisputable,
Undisputable
factual knowledge. So
all right.
Brendan will give you his opinion, and I will give you the truth.
That's I don't even know what to say to that. We're going to stop this week. This last Wednesday, the Ultimate Fighter Season 14 just ended. The big story behind this is Michael the Count Bisping versus Jason Mayhem Miller in a middleweight matchup that really, when it comes down to it, has some kind of contention behind it. Bisping's been kind of proven himself over the last couple of years. He's lost a bout here and there, but he's really come on strong, and he's really showed a gain in his knowledge since he's went down to 185, and he's really gotten a hold of that division and getting down to that weight, and he's really the strongest right now. And Mayhem is coming over from Strikeforce. The guy had one fight in the UFC with George St. Pierre and just made him look real bad. But he went away, got a lot better, come back. He's really looks like he's put on muscle, a lot of weight, and these two guys are going into it. A lot of trash talk. A lot of these guys want to be in contention to fight Anderson Silva. So I guess where I want to start here is this fight going in is not what I would call a fight for a shot at Anderson, more of a fight to get a fight for a shot at Anderson, because the guys are maybe mid to top tier middleweights, but they're also coming in going up against guys like Chael Sonnen, Mark Munoz, who have really earned their shot. So really I want to see what your opinion is, Luke, on what this fight means for these two, and where do you see the winner and the loser headed?
Well, Brendan, I think if Mayhem Miller would have been in the UFC for the long run, if he would never have went to other organizations, if he never would have traveled around and trained people, this fight would not matter. It'd be a good fight, like people would look forward to it, but like, would this be a title contention fight? Does beating Michael Bisping earn you a title shot, or even a title like contention? I don't think so. Does beating Michael Bisping? I mean, Michael Bisping he's a very popular British fighter, but I'm not sure that he's ever done anything to show that he can even contend with the top level guys. Not just Anderson Silva, but just anybody in the top 5.
What? Chainsaw McCarthy? That wasn't a good win to boost him up the rankings. I mean, come on.
I mean, you get knocked out by Vanderlei Silva, and
Well, no. He did get knocked out. This went to it was a split decision.
It was a split decision with Vanderlei?
Yeah, and Vanderlei.
Where have I been?
Vanderlei.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Because, Vanderlei almost knocked him out, like in the last, like couple of seconds.
Right.
And Bisping threw a big British fit.
You're thinking of Dano.
I'm thinking.
You're thinking of the best knockout in the last, 4 years.
Best knockout in UFC history, one of them. But, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this fight doesn't matter. They're building it up because, Mayhem has gained a lot of popularity due to his PR work outside of the UFC with Bully Beatdown and all of his commentating stuff. You can find 1,000 instructional DVDs on the ground game, on jiu-jitsu with Mayhem. But he's never proven himself as a fighter. I mean, he beat like a 45-year-old Kazushi Sakuraba, and that's like his biggest win of the last the last several years.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm interested to see it, but do I think that it stirs up the division at 185? Not at all.
All right. Well, this kind of leads us into another deal, because what we were getting from news sources was that Chael Sonnen and Mark Munoz would be fighting for a number one contender shot here come up on UFC on Fox 2. But now we're getting the reports that Chael shot this down. He says, no, I'm not fighting Munoz. I'm really taking a look at the fight for this Saturday, which, I mean, that doesn't even seem like a feeble option to me, mainly because you got Mark Munoz, who has earned a shot, has went out and in his last 7 fights, he got knocked out by Matt Hamill at 205.
Right.
That was it. He dropped down to 185, and he's been on a tear ever since. He's putting guys down left and right, and he's earned a shot at, I think, really with his last win, he'd earned a shot at Anderson Silva, in my opinion. But you've got Chael, who's coming back out of his, crisis financially and his steroid issue and his
legal issues.
Yeah, his legal issues with the scandaling money or whatever, and trying to get all that stuff done or whatever. And he's come back. They put him up against Brian Stann. He destroys him. It's not even like a fight. And Brian Stann was a guy that was climbing up there. Brian Stann was right there.
Yeah, the last couple fights, I was very, very impressed with Brian Stann. I was a big fan of his at 205 when he was in the WEC. I thought he was a tough guy. I know a couple of guys that served in the military with him. So I was a big fan of Brian Stann. But even going down to 185, he looked 10 times better. People were talking about, what is Brian Stann going to look like fighting Anderson Silva? And, everybody thought that the guy was going on a title run, and just Sonnen really proved that he's on another level and just walked through him, really.
Oh yeah. And when it comes to with that win, then you got Anderson calling out, or you got Chael Sonnen calling out Anderson Silva, so laying the law down, let's do this. I'll leave the UFC if you beat me. If I beat you, you leave the weight class. Well, Anderson
most epic call out ever.
And yeah, not only that, he doesn't. What happens afterward is Anderson, of course, doesn't understand a word Chael's saying as he's sitting on the sidelines, because Ed Suarez in there, jacking Anderson Silva off, telling him what to say, and he just shakes his head and smiles. So you don't even know if Anderson really understands what Chael's calling him out for. And then when he does find out, Suarez and him are saying that Chael doesn't even deserve a shot.
Well, it's interesting of them to say that, which I understand their point. He's coming off, he was before the Stann fight, he was coming off a loss to Anderson Silva, so why put him right back in with Anderson Silva? But if he doesn't fight Anderson after beating Brian Stann, who is there in the division? Who is there left in the division for him to slaughter to get him a title shot?
Which was my point. They came to Munoz, which he doesn't. I don't think he would slaughter Munoz.
No.
Of course, as you and I know, we're huge Chael Sonnen fans, and we think that he would slaughter anyone. But Munoz is a very decorated wrestler.
They actually Munoz and Chael Sonnen actually wrestled each other in college. I don't remember the year. I don't remember if it was for a title, but I do remember that Mark Munoz kind of had his way with Chael, which really surprised me because, just looking up stuff on YouTube, I've seen Chael Sonnen in a pure wrestling match, and the guy's a monster, but apparently Munoz just let him have it to the point that Chael Sonnen actually attempted a heel hook during their wrestling match, which Munoz was real upset about. And then years later, his wife at like some kind of formal party, Munoz's wife asked Chael why he decided to try the heel hook in the middle of a wrestling match, and he said, "I was getting my butt kicked. What did you want me to do?" So I with Munoz and Sonnen fighting, I don't know if that's as clear cut of a win for Chael, because I underestimated Munoz's wrestling. I knew it was good, I knew it was primed, but to massacre Chael Sonnen in a wrestling match, I mean that's impressive.
And even with Munoz coming in with this, this collegiate wrestling, career and being a Division I champion and this and that, he's come a long way in the fight game.
Yeah.
He's really brought his striking on. He's really come to getting the idea of the conditioning down to a T. And there's, fights when Munoz was starting to come on, you notice that he was fatiguing there towards the third round, throwing the big hooks, and he looked tired. But now he's really dedicated himself to the sport on a full front, and I really think it gives Chael something to think about, because he's gotten crazy good.
Yeah, and in a very short time, he has mastered the art of ground and pound. I mean, he's boiled it down to a science pretty much in a very short time. Even when he was at 205, I mean, if a guy got on top of you, he was going to hurt you. He wasn't going to try a submission. He wasn't going to lay and pray. He was going to hurt you while you're on your back. So that's something interesting too. Is are they going to stand and bang if the fight goes down? Are they going to stand and bang and test each other's stand-up games, or are they going to both ferociously try to take each other down? Because neither one of them are really known for a game off their back.
Yeah, I don't even know where you even go with those two. Usually when it comes down to a wrestler, it's stand up and bang.
Right.
And those guys, of course, we saw Chael put Anderson down in the first round.
But he's rib hurt.
But he did. He clocked him and made him stumble. And Munoz has put guys out before. So
first time in UFC history Anderson Silva's ever been knocked down by a strike.
Yeah. I mean, and now you got these two guys that are both picking up being good with the hands. So it's really a bad call where that fight goes. I would really like to see it. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition, but
I'm sure we'll see it at some point. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure at some point it will come up, whether it happens to be Chael's next fight, whether it is this title contention fight. I'm sure it will happen sometime in the future.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next topic here. The MMA Awards just happened last night, as a matter of fact, and a lot of I guess mainly the one thing that comes down was the big Charles Mask Lewis Fighter of the Year.
Right.
A lot of nominees for it: Henderson, Jon Jones. There are a couple other guys that were up for it too.
Yeah.
Of course, I voted for Dan Henderson because I like Dan, and I really think that he's, especially this past year after his loss to Jake Shields, and Jake Shields came over to the UFC, Dan went on tear. He got 3 knockout victories in a row, took the light heavyweight belt in Strikeforce, and put the consensus #1 heavyweight at one point out. And everybody,
Fedor Emelianenko.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, he was the #1, at one point. He's really, he's kind of dropped off here recently, but Dan even weighed in at 206.
By the way, little sidebar here. Did you see what Fedor Emelianenko did to Jeff Monson's leg?
Holy moly.
They just put up on mixedmartialarts.com a picture of Jeff Monson on crutches, and honestly, Brendan, I think it's the worst damage I've ever seen in any MMA. As far as MMA goes, it's the worst damage I've ever seen. The guy's thigh is twice as big as the other one. It's just black and blue. Apparently, Fedor broke his femur with leg kicks. That's nonsense.
Yeah, and it's really a good fight back for Fedor. I mean, the guy went 3 fights down.
Yeah.
He's coming in. Monson's no slouch. I'm not going to say he's he's not a huge heavyweight.
I think he hit number 44 during the fight with Emelianenko. He's a 44th ranked heavyweight in the world.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's a bad fighter by any means. Any guy that goes in there and fights and puts up wins is somebody to take a look at. But
he is legit. I mean, he's one of the most decorated ADCC competitors ever, as far as the Abu Dhabi grapplers. I mean, he's one, if not the most, one of the most highly decorated heavyweight grapplers of all time.
Right, and definitely it's a big step for Fedor. Of course, as soon as one person maybe even hinted at the fact that Fedor might sign with the UFC, people took off with it.
Yeah.
I could see where it might have come into play, but I mean, Dana and the UFC have dealt with M1 on 2 separate occasions, and maybe even more. So we never really know how much they've dealt with them.
There's always so many rumors flying around about who's talking to who's signing what.
And his M1's owner Vadim, this guy just amazes me. I mean, granted, he didn't take the UFC deal that they gave him, which I heard was
massive,
very good, and he decided to go with Strikeforce only because Strikeforce would co-promote with M1. Now, we all see where M1's at right now. Like, they're putting on lower tier shows on Showtime. I don't really see how they're making money, and I wish that Fedor would just get rid of him. I wish they didn't.
I do too.
Because I would like to see Fedor come to the UFC, even though he was on a 3-fight, slide. Yeah. Because the guy's still going to bring money. He's still going to bring a load of experience, and he's going to give any heavyweight in the division a fight, like a fight they probably haven't felt before. And even if he came over to fight in the light heavyweight division, he could go 2 ways with that. It doesn't matter. But I really don't think it's going to happen. And as I saw when Dana was quoting, hell no, to the crazy Russian, because that's pretty much what you're dealing with when you deal with M1.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if the crazy Russian is directly aimed at Fedor himself, but because I mean, when Fedor was undefeated, when he was this big puzzle about how to beat him. Turns out you just have to punch him in the face. That was the key the whole time. When he was this undefeatable fighter, M1 was doing the right thing. They're like, you're going to give us a massive contract. That's what I would have done. But now that he's been beaten by Bigfoot Silva, and I mean he's
Verdum.
Fabricio Verdum,
and Dana to top it off.
Yeah, and I mean, and even a 205 guy. His reputation was riding that contract, and now that it's not necessarily there, I'd like to see him come back, and I think Fedor would beat anybody in the middle of the heavyweight. But Chick Congo, Matrione, those kind of guys. I think Fedor would run through him. When you start to get into like the super big heavyweights, that's where you're gonna run into problems, because he's never cut weight, he's never gained weight. He just walks around like he walks around. I think he usually weighs in around 230, 235. Mm-hmm. So you throw him in there with Frank Mir or Brock Lesnar, one of those guys, they might be able to just lay on top of him or just stay away from him. But yeah, I still think it would be very interesting to get him into the UFC. Just even if it's for one fight, just let's see what he's got in the cage.
Well, I mean, they wanted that. They told Dana that they could come to Russia and put on a show with Velasquez, and said that they had to do it in Russia. And of course, you don't tell Dana to do anything.
It's just like Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. He'll fight Rocky, but you gotta come to Russia.
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
Which is funny because Dolph Lundgren is Swedish.
Oh. That's a great bit of info. Sorry to get off topic. It kind of just threw away, but going back to MMA Awards, I guess the big award was the Fighter of the Year, of course. Jon Jones won that. I'm definitely not I'm not opposed to him winning that award. Jon Jones has come a long way in a short time. The dude's 22 years old, just wrecking through the light heavyweight division. He just wrecked everybody that they put in front of him. He had the one loss on his record to Matt Hamill for some strikes. Elbow strikes he threw 12-6, but really Hamill was done before he started throwing those. It's just part of it. Other than that fight being the loss on his record, he's really made a name for himself. I guess what it comes down to now is we get on the hype train of 140 coming up with him versus Machida.
Yeah.
You know, where do we see Jon Jones in the next 2 years? This guy just gets better with every fight. He doesn't. I mean, he's got Greg Jackson behind him. You don't go wrong with Greg Jackson. He game plans with the best.
Yeah.
He doesn't. You really can't fight Greg Jackson or any one of his fighters without knowing that you really got a fight on your hands with what he's teaching his guys.
Right. I think. Like you said, anybody coming out of Greg Jackson's camp is going to be a good fighter. And when you got a guy as talented, as naturally gifted and talented as Jon Jones, that's just a devastating combination. Like when he came out against Jackson on his hands, walking on his hands. Everybody. I watched the fight at B-Dubs, and I was pretty drunk, but he came out walking on his hands, and everybody started laughing. They're like, haha, Jon Jones playing. He's not even taking this fight serious. I disagree. I think he was taking it very serious. Quentin Jackson is known as a puncher, and that's it. You rarely see him throwing kicks. You rarely see him going for takedowns. He is a pretty strict boxer, and when he came out on all fours, you can't counterpunch a guy on his hands, and you can't kick him. So that is a genius ploy coming straight out of Greg Jackson's mouth, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely. We see him go up now against probably one of his better opponents. Machida kind of lost it. He gained so much momentum and got that light heavyweight title, and then fought in a fight. He just kind of wrecked through everybody. Like he was the enigma. He was Machida the enigma.
Yeah.
Nobody could figure him out. He goes into a title fight versus Shogun Rua. Shogun comes out, solves the riddle. Is what he does. He comes into that 5-round, that first title fight, solves the riddle. You and I both thought it was clear cut. We were cheering the whole. It was, but we were cheering the whole time. Everybody in the Dubs could hear us.
Yeah.
Screaming and yelling about how we knew that Shogun was finally going to get the title back.
We were drunk then too.
Oh yeah, we were. But of course it was a big day for us. And when they announced that Machida was the winner, it was like the night ruiner. It was like that was the night weekend we went out for my birthday, and it was the night ruiner. It was just like I couldn't even enjoy myself the rest of the night because I knew that Shogun had got robbed of the title, and that Machida was walking away with it. And I never had a problem with Machida until he got that fight.
Yeah, it was an immediate vendetta against Lyoto Machida.
It was.
You are not the champion, sir.
It was just like Chael Anderson.
Yeah.
Chael beat him up for 4.5 rounds. Then he gets tapped out in 8 seconds by a triangle, but really Chael's still the champion, like he says, and I still think he's the champion, and I know that you still think he's the champion. But after that fight, Dana goes in and says, "I thought Shogun won the fight. I'm going to go for an immediate rematch."
Yeah.
That rematch takes place. Shogun comes out, first round knockout. All the questions are answered. Like, Shogun might have been the only guy to solve the Machida riddle, but he did it.
Yeah.
And now you're going to see Machida go into a fight with Jon Jones, who doesn't have that. He doesn't have that Thai background that Shogun has. He doesn't have the waiting. I think the waiting game that Shogun has to wait around, to find his spots, to pick his spots. He wants to get in there. He wants to get it done. He'll use his flashiness. He'll use his talent, just pure raw athletic talent, to get where he wants. But that could land him in a problem coming into this Machida fight.
Right. And another thing to think about, a lot of people think that after Shogun beat Machida, that the riddle was solved. But then if you look at his next fight against Quentin Jackson, a lot of people think that Machida won that fight, including myself. I think Machida done enough in that fight because the first couple rounds they were real boring. They Jackson, you can say he won them, but it's one of the, if you have to score a winner, he won them. But it was an even. They just kind of came out and stood there, and then Machida made the big press in the third round and really, really hurt Jackson. So, and then he came out and KO'd Randy Couture in very exciting fashion. So
in Karate Kid fashion.
Yeah, Karate Kid fashion, straight crane technique. Like it was like screw Steven Seagal. Mr. Miyagi taught him that kick. So I think it's unfair to say that the Machida riddle has been solved. I think the difference is, though, as the champion, Machida can stay away from opponents. He can make guys fight him as the champion.
Right.
But as the contender, as a guy coming in to face the champion, I'm curious to see how he approaches that, because he has to be aggressive. He has to go, to be the champion, you got to beat the champion. You always hear people saying that. He's got to go out and he's got to fight Jon Jones. And I think that's the key to beating all the unbeatable champions. How do you beat Jon Jones? How do you beat Anderson Silva? How do you beat George St. Pierre? You go in and you fight him. You don't stand. Look at how Shogun fought Jones. Going into it, I was like, if Shogun presses real hard, he's going to win. And the couple times you see Shogun moving forward, he moves forward and is successful. But he just stood there outside of his range and in Jon Jones's range. So I'm curious to see how Machida is going to go about this, because he's a tactician. The guy he's a thinking man's fighter. So I think he has better odds than most people would give him to beat Jon Jones.
Definitely. That takes me right into another announcement that just happened this week. They just announced that the UFC on Fox 2 will be headlined by Rashad Evans and Phil Davis. This fight was supposed to come about not too long ago, a little over half a year ago. Phil Davis got injured, and we didn't get to see that fight. We watched Rashad move on. But what everybody wants to see is this Rashad-Jon Jones fight.
Right.
It's all centered around this fight. These guys were teammates. Rashad was at Jackson's camp first. Jon Jones comes over, starts laying waste. Rashad's in the spotlight to get a title shot, but he's injured. So they offered the title shot to Jon Jones after the big win, and he takes it. This just doesn't sit well with Rashad. They start getting in a verbal jarring of words, and next thing you know, you hear that Rashad's left Greg Jackson's camp. He's gone down to Florida with Mike Van Arsdale. He started up his own camp. He's looking at the way Rashad's last fight was, he's not getting any less training down there. He's really picked up a lot of guys to train with, some good coaches that he's picked up along the way, and this is like bad blood through like I wouldn't say a brothership, but when you train in the same gym with somebody else, it's, you guys are all brothers. You got one guy that comes in and you get jealous. It's like the Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
One of them just leaves, rather, pretty much like killing the other guy.
Right.
He just leaves the camp, and that's got to be hard on a coach, especially a coach like Greg Jackson, who cares a lot about his fighters, to watch one of one of the guys that brought your camp to the top just walk out because he can't deal with this younger stud coming in.
Yeah.
And taking the belt. So me personally, I would love to see this fight. I want to see these two go into the fight with not only just to settle the score, but the bad intentions that come in from both sides, because they both want to kill each other.
Right.
Problem is, you get Rashad going into a number one contender fight with Phil Davis. The dude's a stud as well. Right. Granted, we're not talking Jon Jones level as far as his striking goes and whatnot, but Phil Davis is a big light heavyweight who's very strong, has a very big collegiate wrestling career where he was a division, he was at Penn State wrestling up there, and that's a big school to be wrestling at. And I don't know if Rashad might be going into this fight thinking that he's going to walk through Phil, but
I hope not.
That'd be his biggest mistake going in this fight.
Yeah. I find it really interesting that so many people put so much emphasis on Jon Jones, Rashad Evans, because in my opinion, like everything else, I don't think Rashad Evans has very much to offer Jon Jones as far as hurting. Where's he going to hurt him? Is he going to outstrike Jon Jones? Probably not. Is he going to out-wrestle him? I don't know. Maybe. Is he going to be successful on the ground with him? Probably not. I don't think there's a lot of places that Rashad Evans can. We've already seen Ryan Bader, Yeah, a guy that I think fits the same format as Rashad Evans. He's a great wrestler with a big punch. Not necessarily the greatest boxer, but he's got heavy hands.
Right.
And I mean, we watched that archetype fight Jon Jones and just utterly fail. Not to say that Rashad Evans is going to fight Jon Jones the same way that not to say that Rashad is going to fight Jon Jones the same way that Ryan Bader would, but also you got to take into consideration that, like we just mentioned, one of the keys to these guys' success is Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson he's really the mind behind a lot of their success, and Rashad hasn't fought since he left Greg Jackson's camp.
I don't think
who's.
No,
I
you got me.
I might be wrong here, because I was thinking that he was hurt for all that time. He was hurt for all that time, and then they offered Jones the title shot, and then he's been hurt. And I think this is his first fight back. We're gonna Google it here.
The worst part is that we're doing an MMA show, and most of the time I'd be on top of it as far as these fights go. That's the one thing you can always rely on me to know all the records and everything that goes along with every fight and card. And of course, this time I can't remember. And Luke made the point that Rashad's been injured.
Yeah, he's been hurt for a long time.
So,
and even when he like with Phil Davis, I think the hype behind Phil Davis is that he is a natural athlete. The guy's a monster athlete, and he's a great wrestler. But if you look at him fight Little Nog, the Nogueira brothers, a lot of people only know them from their jiu-jitsu. People know them as grapplers, but they both train with the Brazilian boxing, the Olympic boxing team. So their striking's great. And you didn't see Phil Davis show up at all against Little Nog, who, in my opinion, is like a gatekeeper. If you want to come into the division and prove that you're a tough guy, beat Little Nog. But Little Nog's never going to go run. He's never going to make a title run.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because what is Phil Davis going to do to beat Rashad Evans? Is he going to out wrestle him? Is he stronger? Is he a better striker? What tools are he going to utilize in order to beat Rashad Evans?
As far as their wrestling goes, it kind of cancel each other out.
Yeah,
I would say probably Rashad might be a little more experienced on the wrestling side, but I also think that Phil Davis might be more on the strength side.
Yeah,
I think he's just a cut dude.
He's built like an action figure.
Oh yeah, if you ever see weigh-in photos, his upper body is like 6 feet long,
and
his
disgusting.
waist is like a foot and a half long.
Really, if you think about it, it's really gross the way that he's built. He's got this little tiny waist, and then you come up to his lats and his pecs and his shoulders, and he's just this monster.
Yeah, it's definitely scary, but yeah, I'm with you on there. I think it's going to be a big test for Davis coming into that fight. I mean,
Rashad's used to playing around at the top of the division.
Right. And I just found the information, and I don't know how you didn't remember, but he refought Tito after Tito went on his.
Oh, that's right.
Tito got his fight, and he.
Let me tell you,
surprisingly got the win, and then it was supposed to be Rashad, Phil. Phil dropped out, and then they offered to fight Tito, which originally turned it down, and then said, you know what, I'm going to take this fight because I really got like one run left, so I might as well just quit, hang my ego up, which
is all that's left.
Which is all that's left, but he really has made I really think he has stayed out of the media. He has put his whole smack talk to rest because he realizes that he's gotten chance after chance after chance in the UFC, and there's a lot of people that have turned on him, and he still has a huge fan base, but Dana's given him about everything he wants, so now he's like, I probably ought to just go ahead and give it all I got now.
Well, I've turned on him.
Of course. I never was a fan anyway.
I never was a fan. I didn't mind Tito, back in the day when he was fighting, Frank Shamrock. Of course, that's a classic, a UFC classic, but, you got lucky and you choked out
Ryan
Bader. Yeah, you choked him out, and now what are you gonna do?
But as much, I understand that, but as much as you say he got lucky and he choked out Ryan Bader, and he may have got lucky, but as much as I hate Tito, I wanted to see him beat Rashad. I don't know what it was, but I wanted to see that come from behind on the brink of getting cut, and now you're 2 fights in 2 weeks, putting guys out, getting not instantly. You get a fight over Ryan Bader, and then you beat Rashad Evans. It definitely sticks you right up in the title picture.
Who's he fighting coming up? Tito Ortiz. He's got a
Lil Nog.
That's right, Lil Nog.
Next Saturday night.
I'm interested to see that
UFC
as far as a boxing match goes, because Tito Ortiz been putting in the work over at Freddie Roach's gym.
Of course, yeah, and of course the Lil Nog's got definitely. They're both decent, very decent boxers.
Yeah.
They can hold their own. Lil Nog, he's got I think a little more left in the tank than Big Nog does.
Yeah.
He hasn't been knocked out and put through the grind like Big Nog has with the fights with Fedor.
Being hit by a bus as a child.
That definitely takes it. But yeah, Big Nog's been through the ringer with Crow Cop and
the Emelianenko fights and the Silva fight.
Right, and then the Crow Cop fight, like I said, and all those he took pretty massive beatings.
And even his fights with Frank Mir and Cain Velasquez, those were devastating, devastating fights.
But the worst one I hate to bring up, because
don't do it, Brendan.
I have to. When he came over and he got his interim title shot against Tim Sylvia.
Yeah.
Tim Sylvia beat him up.
Yeah, beat the crap out of him.
Almost three rounds. He beat him up. And it was one of those times when Big Nog's face was unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And then he comes from behind, gets him in the guillotine, sends Tim Sylvia packing. I wasn't mad about at all. And, and then, of course, Nog, loses that interim title shot. Now he's been kind of working, just trying to keep a job in there.
Yeah.
And he's getting down to his last days, I think.
Yeah. He's in the smallest percentile of his career, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is unfortunate because Big Nog is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah,
players. Nobody's got more heart than that guy.
When it comes down to when you're painting a picture of the best fight you've ever seen, you've got the Crow Cop Fedor fight, you've got the one that a lot of people don't think about, the Shogun Lil Nog fight in Pride, which was a huge fight.
It's an amazing fight. If you haven't seen that, go watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Big Nog comes in and gets his legend fight with Randy Couture.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's not one of those ones that, when they fought, that everybody wanted to see. They would have rather seen it a couple years back. But when those two fought, that fight was good from beginning to end.
From beginning to end.
The guy still puts up good fights, but it's just he's come to that point where he needs to think about hanging him up.
Hanging him up, yeah. And he's one of those guys that I hate when fighters make excuses. Like Anderson Silva during the Chael Sonnen, my rib was hurt. If you go through a long, hard training camp, you are going to go into the fight with some kind of injury, no matter how minute. Guaranteed. Every fighter that fights, their hands are sore. They're guaranteed. So, but Big Nog, that guy, God bless him, has had more health problems. That he's always getting his hip replaced, or he's gotten 400 staph infections. A lot of people don't know this, but during the first time that he went and fought Fedor Emelianenko, he was so sick with a staph infection that. In Pride they did the big walkouts, the boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah.
The big walkout was actually done by Little Nog because Big Nog was so sick that he couldn't even make the walkout. And then went and got his clock cleaned by Fedor Emelianenko. How do you take
for 15 minutes?
Yeah, how do you take a butt kicking with a staph infection that you're in a wheelchair from? Still get out there and fight Fedor Emelianenko.
Well, mainly because you've been ran over by a truck. So anything after that should seem minute.
Yeah.
So just kind of blast into another subject here. I don't even remember where that last one started, and it just kind of tailspinned out of control. That'll happen more than once, I'm sure. So
we're all about being impromptu.
Yeah, we don't want to script it out. We just kind of want to go where we go with it.
Being knowledgeable is not the only reason that we call this minimal effort.
Yeah, definitely.
We've only been talking here for a little bit, and we've already like had a whole bunch of like misinformation put out there.
Yeah. So I mean, our thing is, definitely I don't know when it will be up. Hopefully, just keep an eye out for it. We'll start up a minimal effort Facebook page. What we expect our listeners to do, whether you hate us or love us, is go to our page, and you can like it. And if there's something you agree with, or there's something you disagree with, post it on the wall. My favorite part's going to be is we'll go through that wall, and each week when we come back to do a podcast, we will pick the best ones, and the best ones that we think if people disagree with us, because
the best rebuttals.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I want to see one person every time we do a podcast just straight get ripped, because there's going to be somebody that's going to make both of us mad, because usually it's one of us takes one side and one of us can take the other side and kind of make a point for both entries, but there's one point somebody's going to say something that's just going to take us on a tailspin of ripping you a new one. So I hope you're not that person, but we definitely encourage you to write on our wall and give us your input on what you hear from us, and we'll definitely get something written up on the wall. If we get something written right then, we will. If not, we'll bring it on the show. We'll talk about it. So we'll get a MMA Minimal Effort Facebook page, and hopefully by the next podcast we'll let you know that we have it up, and we'll post more information as time comes.
Looking forward to tooling you.
That's awesome. So, going on to another bit of news here. With the UFC's partnership that they've developed with Fox, we're getting a whole load of fights not on Spike. So it's the Spike, and we've moved away from the Spike and Versus, and now everything's moving to Fox. We get UFC on Fox, which is the first time on broadcast television for the UFC. Which is great for our community, because everybody wants to see fights, and we want to expose it to as many people as possible to make the sport get even bigger than it is now. But now we're getting fights on FX as well and on Fuel TV. So we get buttloads of fights on cable TV and this and that, and now they're really starting to come out and let it be known that we got one UFC on Fox card coming up, which you talked about earlier. It was going to be headlined by Rashad and Phil Davis. But we also got our first announcement for UFC on Fuel number 1, which is going to be headlined by Jake Ellenberger and Diego Sanchez. When I heard this fight, I couldn't help but get excited, and I have never been a Diego Sanchez fan. But every time he goes into fight, minus the Koscheck fight they had like 5 years ago, he always puts on a good fight. He's always there to sling it out. If he's cut, he's bleeding, it don't matter, he'll swing. And we saw that in the Martin Kampman fight. They put on a fight of the night like no other. It's definitely ranked in probably one of the top 10 fights. And, it went in that top 10 fight list for fans, but you always can tell when it hits the UFC brass, too, when it's a good fight, because Dana throws extra money. And he gave him both fight and win bonuses. He gave him a $100,000 bonus, and who knows what else he gave on top of that, because he really liked that fight that much. So we get to see Diego come in versus Jake Ellenberger. The dude comes in. He's got raw talent. He's like a, I don't want to compare him to another fighter, but he's like a John Fitch incarnate. The guy can wrestle. He'll grind you out. But now what we've seen in the last fight is that he will knock you out. And that's something that we have not seen for Fitch in quite some time. But Ellenberger comes in riding high on this Jake Shields brutal beatdown that he gave to him. And he's getting Diego Sanchez. And it couldn't be a better fight for Fuel for their first broadcast of any kind of fight. So
it's going to be a slobber knocker.
It's going to be a slobber knocker. This isn't a wrestling show.
Yeah.
Let's keep the
give it time. I was actually going to tell you, Brendan, did you know that our producer, Mike Schrone, did you know that he is Bobby the Brain Heenan's fifth cousin?
That is amazing. And the best part about him being his fifth cousin is he can't even sit over there across the room while we're doing this and smile about it or shake his head, because he's straight passed out on his couch because he's been so busy that we're probably, when this is over, we're just going to have to wake him up and be like, Mike, you want to shut this off now?
It certainly doesn't make me feel very good about our podcast that the one guy that we've been talking about this with is over there like just dead unconscious. Where I'm no more than 6 feet away from him and talking about him blatantly, and he cannot hear me.
Well,
anyway,
back to the Ellenberger. I just kind of wanted to get your input on where you see what you see in this fight and what it can bring to Fuel as their first fight on TV.
Well, I think it's gonna be a great fight. I think Diego Sanchez is. I mean, the kid always fights tough guys. You know, you never see the UFC handing Diego Sanchez some easy fight. He always fights the best guys in the division, and he always fights them. You know, he always puts on an excellent performance. Even like when he fought BJ and got, you know, just his brains just about beat out. He still, you know, hung in there, gave it everything that he had, and I think that's going to be, you know, a key element to the fight because Jake Ellenberger is nonsensically heavy-handed. The kid he has knockout power in both hands. His Muay Thai is excellent. If you look at his fight with John Doomsday Howard, who was kind of a turd in the UFC, like the MMA scene. Like he never really made a big splash. But if you look at him outside of the UFC and look at like his Muay Thai prestige, the guy is an animal.
Right.
And you know, Ellenberger just tooled him on his feet. So the kid's stand-up is ridiculous. I think Diego probably has an advantage on the ground. I think he has a huge advantage on the ground. We really haven't seen much of Ellenberger's ground game. Not to say that it's not there. You know, the kid could be, you know, he could be Hickson Gracie's top student or whatever down there. We don't really know because we haven't seen him down there very much. So it's fair to give Diego Sanchez a big advantage on the ground. And I think it would be wise of him to take it there. You know, you don't see Diego Sanchez chasing after a real technical stand-up fight very often. Right. Even against Campman, which he won. You know, he looked like Quasimodo coming out of that fight. He was during Joe Rogan's interview with him, like he's bleeding out of his mouth, like dripping onto his chest, like I have a warrior spirit, or like whatever he's going on about his samurai crap. But you know, I think it's a good fight to put on that channel for the first time because it's not necessarily going to make a whole bunch of waves in the division. You know, if Ellenberger wins, you know, his next fight has to be a top 5 guy.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
Ellenberger's come. He's stringing a couple wins together, and then just putting Jake Shields on his ass. It made people take notice.
Yeah.
It made him realize that, hey, this kid's here to play.
Yeah.
So he goes through this fight with Diego. He wins, whether it be by knockout or whether it be a decision win. He's definitely one of those guys you got to start talking about. You go, and then you got to wonder where it's going with 170. I mean, you got George St. Pierre, of course, sitting at the top, not looking like the rain's coming to an end anytime soon whatsoever. He's destroyed the entire division.
Yeah.
He's got 2 guys left. He's got a guy left, really, that hasn't fought him, and that's Carlos Condit, which we thought we were going to see that fight, and Condit, you know, kind of got pushed out because Nick Diaz, you know, wants his shot.
Yeah, little controversy behind that.
Yeah, definitely, but, you know, you got to start thinking about Ellenberger in that kind of title contention. Like, what fight are you going to give him next? And, you know, I got to think Ellenberger goes into this fight, he beats Diego Sanchez, GSP Nick Diaz fight, and of course Nick Diaz is going to lose. I make the bold statement, you know, and this, you know, one of those things that.
But Brendan, he's the best boxer in MMA.
Yeah, well, I don't care.
He's the best black belt in MMA.
I don't care. I mean, I really don't care. I can't really stand him or his brother, but I also can't deny that they're also decent fighters as well. They definitely put on shows. They hold their own. With the last win by Diaz, he's on like some kind of sick like 13 fight win streak. Like he's put down every guy that's been put in front of him, and he's made it look somewhat easy. He went up against, you know, Paul Daly, which is not like any kind of guy on the ground, but Paul Daly's a stud on the feet.
Yeah,
he put Campman out on his feet,
yeah,
like no problem. And
oh, yeah.
And Campman is like a highly regarded guy from both of us, and Nick Diaz went in there and made him look silly.
Yeah.
So it's not that Diaz has insane power. It's not that he has, like anything other than that. When it comes to boxing, he peppers you with jabs, and he just keeps coming with them. And it's after time they build up. That's the thing. We saw it with Talking Origami. We saw him put him on the ropes. We saw him pepper him over and over again, and they're not heavy shots. I'm not going to sit there.
We should save this conversation for our next podcast, because I could go on for hours with my extreme hatred of.
Oh yeah, I'm there with you. I just
let's pretend for a second. I hate to do this because there's nothing to say that Diego Sanchez isn't going to mow through him, but if under the circumstance that Ellenberger wins, I would love to see him take on the winner of, speaking of Martin Kampmann and Thiago Alves.
Oh,
that is going to be.
That was the next bullet in my thing, but we can just tie it right in here.
Yeah,
Alves Kampmann. They announced his fight. Kampmann's coming off the win. Last week over Rick Story.
Yeah,
it was a split decision. We both think that Rick Story's a stud too.
Yeah, tough kid.
But Kampmann is on a whole nother level when it comes to striking. He can make normal punches. Well, I guess to the fair weather fan, Kampmann doesn't throw power shots. Kampmann doesn't throw all the things you want to see. Kampmann throws crisp, technical punches that add up, and he will make you look bad.
I would say it would be fair to say that he's the most technical striker in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's probably a couple other guys that you could put right up there with him.
Yeah.
He's definitely the most technical in the welterweight division.
Oh, easy,
hands down. Now he gets a big fight. I think Kampmann's really worked himself for the last couple of years. He's been one of those guys he's always put in good fights and he's always winning, but either he gets injured or maybe gets a setback and he has to kind of reclimb again. And
you got to think that he's gotten screwed a couple of times.
Right,
Martin Kampmann.
definitely.
Like in my opinion, he beat Jake Shields.
Oh, hands down.
He beat Jake Shields.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They wanted to hype the Shields GSP fight. Mike's waking up. Hey, good morning, baby. They wanted to hype the GSP Shields fight, and they did, and I got excited about it too. But they put Kampmann on the back burner because if he didn't do enough to win that fight, I don't know who did. And then the same thing with Diego Sanchez. If you look at their faces, did Diego Sanchez's 4 or 5 takedowns really have enough on him to win him that fight over the massacre that Kampmann let out on Sanchez's face?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I guess that's why you always have to take the cliche. Don't leave it to the judges because that's what happens.
Yeah.
You get decisions where you don't agree with it. It's just put them out. I mean, it's not, and I'm not saying this because I know what I'm talking about. I don't fight. I just really pay attention to it, and I really listen to a lot of knowledge. And you always got to, go for the kill. And sometimes,
if Cecil Peoples would have been on the panel for either one of those fights, he would have made the right call.
He would have made the right call. But what we do is we go into this fight. Kampmann gets a big fight now. Thiago Alves looking like a whole different guy after John Fitch gave him his second loss. They had a Fitch Alves rematch back at 117. Fitch comes in. Dana's given in a number one contender talk fight, even though Alves has been out for a year. Comes in, Fitch makes him look bad as normal, like he does everybody else. Then we don't hear anything about the title shot that comes next. But what happens is Thiago Alves loses that fight, in which he weighs in overweight, I'm pretty sure. But after this fight comes on, he realizes that, hey, I've got to do something about my diet because I'm coming in, I'm being overweight, or I'm getting weak. So he enlists the help of Mike Dolce for the Dolce diet. This guy, he was a fighter in the Ultimate Season back in season 6 or 7, I think. It didn't really make a splash, but he makes a splash when it comes to fighters. He's well sought out, has the perfect diet for any fighter. You get him on weight, not going in there starving and dehydrating, and he really has changed Thiago Alves' outlook on the fight game when it comes to preparation. We hear in this last fight, Alves came in and he weighed a pound over, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go again with the Thiago Alves fight," or, with the weight talk. And then Dolce says, "Oh, I don't know why people are starting to badmouth him already. It's a different scale. our scale was off a pound from the other scale.
Right.
And, in no time, an hour, he was dropped down to weight. He was good to go. But Alves is really looking into regeneration right now. He's coming off this win. Then he gets Martin Kampmann. Both these guys are getting close to that. They're in talks for that title contention fight. Now, I'm not saying that either one of these wins they get a title shot, but one of these guys wins, they're going up against Jon Fitch, and that sucks to hear it again that Jon Fitch gets to fight for a #1 title shot again. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of fighters that you would consider me. I'm a nut hugger. Jon Fitch I'm a nut hugger. I love Jon Fitch. He's a boring fighter.
Boiler up.
But he's from Purdue. He's from our area. He's from he's a Hoosier. But it's not that. It's just that the guy wasn't that gifted coming into the MMA game. He just had that much drive and that much attention to make himself better by work. The guy worked, he worked, and his UFC record is 13-1. Are you kidding me? His one loss comes to George St. Pierre. Don't get me wrong, St. Pierre made him look bad.
Real
he
bad.
Outstruck him. He did everything right. Fitch was out probably 3 or 4 times in that fight, but he had enough heart. He come back, he finished the fight, and that was that. So we find out, that this guy had given GSP his biggest fight to date. Like, GSP couldn't put him out, and he had actually, he'd hit GSP a couple times, but nothing that made any kind of sense. But it was definitely what GSP says. I think actually still to this day that Fitch was my hardest fight.
Yeah. Because
it's frustrating not to be able to put a guy out when you're hitting him over and over again. Fitch loses that fight. He goes back home. He reassesses. He comes out. He's been on a tear ever since. He comes up to BJ Penn. He gets a draw, and now we're right back where Fitch is right out.
Started.
Yeah, because it's hard to sell a GSP Jon Fitch fight too, and as much as
I'd watch it.
Of course, a lot of hardcore fans would watch it, but I have to look on it on the other end. Fights make money, and that money is what makes our sport get bigger. So, I wanted to see Condit GSP, but Nick Diaz GSP brings in more money, and it'll bring in a lot more fans to buy that pay-per-view, because there's a lot of guys that really stand behind Nick Diaz for some odd reason, but
it's because they're thugs.
Oh,
it's thug life.
They
stick together.
Stockton, California. Yeah. Anyway,
throwing up gang signs and stuff. It's important. It's important.
So, it brings on this whole money issue and bringing more fans in. GSP wins this fight, then we get Jon Fitch versus Thiago Alves, Martin Kampmann. where do you throw Jon Fitch? The guy keeps winning. He just had shoulder surgery. He's been out for like a year after that pin fight. He had to get surgery, get it taken care of, and then his first fight back, he gets Johnny Hendricks. Don't get me wrong, Johnny Hendricks is a monster too. He's actually, I think he's on a 3 to 4 fight win streak. Like, he deserves a Jon Fitch fight, but I think he's going to walk right through him. Jon Fitch's going to walk right through him, and he's going to be sitting up there at the top. And like he said, nobody's ever told me why I didn't get another title shot, because nobody wants to tell him why he's not getting another title shot. And if he would just listen, it's because he is a boring fighter. And
he fights like a champion.
He does.
And he's not the champion.
He does. He's like, if George St. Pierre wasn't in the welterweight division,
he'd never get a title shot either.
I guess you're exactly right, but I really think that if Jon Fitch had that title, that's what makes it hard. It's like it has to cringe somebody like Dana or Lorenza that they have to try to sell that fight, because Jon Fitch is not a fan favorite fighter, but he does what he does and he wins. Yeah.
Let's go back to Alves and Kampmann. This is a fight that I'm really excited about. You and I both have been big fans of both of them, and especially Thiago Alves. I don't care how many losses that guy takes. I don't care how many shoulders he has. The kid is top-notch in every – he's powerful. He's fast. His striking is clean. It's really, really good. His grappling's really good. As far as talent goes, he's one of the more talented guys in the division. And I am really looking forward to seeing him use the tools that he has, because I think he's the best. This doesn't get referenced very much, but I think he is the best leg kicker in the UFC right now. I think Anthony Hardunk is the best leg kicker in MMA history. The guy was a turd burglar in the heavyweight division, but his leg kicks were nasty. You couldn't take more than 2 or 3. And even Pat Barry switched stances in order to not get kicked in the leg by Anthony Hardunk. But anyway, I'm interested to see how often he starts utilizing that against guys that don't have such a strong wrestling background. Because, of course he's not going to throw leg kicks against George St. Pierre. He'll get taken down. Of course he's not going to throw leg kicks against John Fish. I'm interested to see if he's going to try to use that against a veteran striker like Martin Kampmann. Because Martin Kampmann's not one of these. He's not one of these guys that he really took to striking. At the gym. I think he trains at Extreme Couture. It's not like he walked in and just got real good, just took it. He's a Danish champion. Those guys in the nether regions of the world, they take kickboxing very serious. It's like boxing over there. It's the combat sport, kickboxing is. And he's a Danish champion. It's hard to understand exactly what that means, being Americans, which thank God we are.
We have wrestling. That's really all we can. Yeah. That's our sport here is when it comes down to it, is we have American wrestling and American kickboxing. Now, of course, we do have boxing. Boxing a lot came from America.
Yeah.
But we know what high level wrestling is.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to kickboxing, we don't know what that is. I mean, hell, I don't even know how many. I know that there's hardcore fans that watch K1. Yeah. Which I think K1 just sunk.
Yeah, recently went under.
So, which sucks. But
it's a shame.
It is a shame. Those are some. If you want to see a sport that's fun to watch on every level, is give them K1.
Yeah.
And of course, hardcore fans are going to listen to this, and if you haven't had a chance to watch any kind of K1 fights, go over and watch K1. Go over and watch Badr Hari. Go over and watch Semi Schilt. Go over and watch Alistair Overeem when he was fighting over there.
Yeah, go watch Ernesto Hoost, Peter Arts. Those guys are
perfect. It's the perfect sport for guys who can't stand MMA's ground game.
Yeah.
It's 3-minute rounds. They give you gloves. They let you use your feet, and they just kick the crap out of each other.
Yeah, they really do.
It really is a fun sport to watch, and it sucks that it didn't take off over here, mainly because nobody's brought it over. But I really think if somebody invested some money and brought that organization like K1 over, it might get some attention. So it kind of sucks, but like you said, Kampmann is a Danish kickboxer, and over there that's a big deal. I don't think Kampmann has that power that Thiago Alves has, but I also think that Martin Kampmann can take a load of punishment.
Yeah.
So if Thiago Alves even hits him with 4 or 5 shots that look bad, Kampmann may come back and hit him with 20 more crisp shots that make Thiago Alves look bad. So this fight is kind of crazy to pick, and I'm, between Luke and I, we pick on MMA Playground. We have a fight camp on there. We always argue about our fights. We always, like to bash each other when somebody gets a better score. When it comes down to that fight,
it's usually me getting the better score.
Well, whatever. The thing is, when it comes to that fight, I don't know who I'm going to pick. I really don't know. It's going to be a toss-up. I'm probably going to say Kampmann tails, Thiago Alves heads, flip a coin, and that's who I'm going with because I really can't pick a winner.
I think I'm going to go with Alves just because I think Kampmann could win on a flurry or a combo. I think he could put him in a lot of trouble with a lot of punches. But I think Thiago Alves has that one punch, knockout power. I think Martin Kampmann's probably I think you have to give him the advantage on the feet. I think he's a better caliber striker, but he doesn't have the stopping power. Usually, it's really interesting because a lot of people don't even, they'll watch his, like I watched his fight with Rick Story with a whole group of people, and they're like, oh, Story's, he's pressing the action, he's being aggressive, he's winning these rounds. But then you watch, like, when they show the replays, and they slow him down, and they show the slow-mo replay. Kampmann's putting it to him. He's doing a lot of damage. He's landing a lot of punches. His striking's just so crisp and clean. You don't even you don't even recognize it as like a high damaging style because it's perfect.
Right.
But he doesn't have the power that Alves has, so I'm probably going to pick Alves based solely on that.
And I still don't know, so I really can't argue this one yet. It hasn't been a fight that it'll probably come down here one of these times where there will be a fight that we totally disagree on, and it will be a back and forth movement for a good 20 minutes, I'm sure. But I know we're staying in the welterweight division, and we went a lot of different places with it, but another fight that's coming up that really has some significant value is Carlos Condit gets knocked out of his title fight with GSP, so Nick Diaz can take over. So Condit gets Josh Koscheck. Now, his fight, it's crazy to think about because Koscheck is an insane good wrestler. He's Division I. He comes in to every fight, and he is, you're going to be put up for a test when you go up against Koscheck. The difference was he first started out, he was one-dimensional. He was the wrestler. He would grind you out. Then he added striking to his game. And when you realized that Koscheck had striking, he started putting guys out. He has heavy hands. Then he come into a fight with Carlos Condit. This guy's riding like a 3 or 4 fight win streak, and he's really put together a string of good victories. And I've been a Condit fan since the WC, but I've really become a Condit fan since he came over to the UFC, and he showed that he's really learning a lot with Greg Jackson.
Boom.
There's another point. I mean, the guy comes from the Jackson camp. Condit's a good fighter, and he may get hit a lot, and he may not. It may seem like he's down and out of the fight, and when that happens, that's when he's in the fight. He comes back, and he always finds a way to win. I watched him get beat up for almost 3 full rounds against Rory McDonald, and he come back and put Rory McDonald out with like 8 seconds to go. They called the fight, and that was a big come-from-behind victory. But when it comes to him and Koscheck, it really comes down to the basis of, can Condit stay on his feet? And if he can he land those big shots and those power elbows that he likes to throw? He has those cutting Kenny Florian elbows that are real sharp and they stick real well. And I'm not going to say, if he goes to his back, he's going to make a problem, because Condit's really good on the ground. So you got Koscheck in a situation where he's like, do I want to stand and bang? Can I get that one shot through that's going to daze him so I can pick him up and put him on his ass and pound him out? Or am I going to put him on his ass and worry about having to deal with the submission game of Carlos Condit?
Yeah. I think what Koscheck's going to have to do to win that fight is, I think you see it all the time, guys shooting in for shots, not getting it, and then they run into the cage and work for takedowns off the cage. I think that's where Koscheck is going to will be able to gain victory. If he can take him down against the cage, take away his offensive grappling, and just stay aggressive. I mean, Koscheck's not really known for advancing, much on the ground. He's not a big passer. He's not a big sweeper. So if he can take him down and put him in a position to where Condit can't be aggressive or offensive off of his back, then I think he has a good chance of winning. I don't think that Koscheck's boxing is at the level at this point to be able to deal with Carlos Condit on his feet. Just look at what GSP did to him with just a jab. It was embarrassing, really.
GSP has made too many guys look bad with the jab. He's made too many guys look bad, period.
It's Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach's jab.
It's crazy.
Look at Pacquiao. Pacquiao is one of the best jabs on the planet, I think.
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm going to end the discussion with that welterweight division right there, because we've gotten so many different directions. But I think one more topic that we kind of want to go over before the show is done is we'll jump over to the heavyweights. We'll talk about a big fight coming up at 141, and I'll kind of go over some fights that they've announced here recently. But we'll start out with the big one, 141. Brock Lesnar is coming back, down and out with diverticulitis. He got his surgery done. He says he's 100% better. The doctors say he's good to go. He's back up in weight. I think he's weighing out around like 275, 280 right now. Coming up against UFC newcomer, K1 kickboxing champion, huge heavyweight, just as big as Lesnar, Alistair Overeem. And this has been a long time coming, I think, for the heavyweight division for the UFC, because Alistair's this enigma outside of the UFC. He wins bouts everywhere. He's a kickboxing champion. He can hold. I mean, the guy went from a 205-pound cut, good fighter and pride. I don't know if he went out and juiced up. Nobody will ever know.
Started eating horses and sharks.
No, I mean, I really don't. You don't know what happened, but the next time you see him, he's 260 pounds and looks like he's been lifting trucks his whole life. So you got two of these giant guys, and it's really opposite ends of the spectrum when the fight game comes down to it. Alistair's an insane striker. I'm not saying he's a slouch on the ground, but I'm guessing this whole bulk that he's put on is really going to put kind of a damper on his submission game when it comes to dealing with, guillotines and stuff like that. Because beforehand he was slender, real tall and slender, 205er, and he was pretty decent on the ground when it comes to submissions. But he's always been big on the feet, and now he's got like a couple K1 titles behind him, and he's going up against Lesnar. And I was never a big fan of Lesnar when he came into the UFC. I was like, this guy's had like freaking 2 fights, and they're bringing him over. Like, this is stupid. But it wasn't a stupid idea on a business perspective. It made the UFC a lot of money, and it still does every time his name rides a pay-per-view card. But he come in, he fought Frank Mir in his first fight. Frank Mir takes a beating. You think it's over, and pulls out the knee bar to make Lesnar tap out. Lesnar comes back, makes veteran Heath Herring in his fight. He makes him look pretty bad. He just bowls through him. He grounds and pounds him. He may not have done a lot, but he didn't do a lot, but he did a lot to Heath Herring to win that fight. And then he gets, he comes off that and he gets a title shot versus Randy. I don't know how, but he does it, and he beats Randy and goes in to his next fight. And I can't remember who.
Who did he fight after? He fought Shane Carwin.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was his next one. He fought Shane Carwin and got
pummeled.
I mean, if the referee would have stopped that in the first round, no one would have been mad.
Right.
He laid there on his side and covered up. He literally, like you see kids in kindergarten, going for the mountain. They just throw both arms over their head and they just pray for it to stop. That's exactly what Brock. He was not intelligently defending himself.
Right, but of course that's one of those things where it's the ref's call, and
I wasn't real mad about them not stopping it, but
right, because of course if it would have been one of our favorite fighters, we'd have told him not to stop the fight. So I mean, it's just the way it goes.
So what? So what, Brendan?
But Lesnar comes out of that fight in the second round. He wins by submission, which is even a crazier thought, and then he loses the title to Cain Velasquez, and the title switch hands. Since it's left Lesnar, it's went through 2 different fighters, but we've got this big fight coming up, which is gonna headline the whole card, and I'm just based on the matchup itself, it's going to be a huge draw for fans because they want to see Lesnar and they want to see this Alistair Overeem guy that everybody talks about but has really never seen fight. And if you watch the Strikeforce card, you have seen him fight probably here in the last year or two. And I'm kind of anxious to see how this fight's going to go because at first I was instantly Alistair Overeem all the way. And now I get down to thinking about it, and I'm like, if Lesnar comes in shape like he's on the top of his game, can Overeem stop that takedown? Can you stop that bull rush that he brings? Because it's rough.
It's really the only question as far as the entirety of the fight goes. The only question is, can Alistair Overeem stop the blast double from Brock Lesnar? If he can, I think he walks to the title. If he can't, then he'll have trouble with guys like Lesnar, like Shane Carwin, even guys like Frank Mir that have a. But if you look at his fight with Fabricio Verdum is a smart takedown artist. He's not a guy that's going to come out and take your classic wrestling shot. He's a smart guy. You see him doing a lot of inside outside leg trips. You see him doing a lot of taking one leg off the ground and kicking at the. He's a smart takedown guy, and he had a lot of trouble taking Alistair down. But that's a completely different style than Brock Lesnar. He's not the most technical takedown artist, but he is one of the heaviest and fastest and strongest. But yeah, I think it's a very intriguing matchup. It's the classic old matchup, grappler versus striker.
Oh, definitely.
Lesnar wants it on the ground, Overeem wants it on the feet, and you have to. Another point that I always try to make at our little Killian's roundtables that we have is that you have to give Alistair Overeem the title of best striker in MMA history. He's the only guy that's ever came out of the K1 promotion with a title. If you look at guys like Mirko Cro Cop, Pat Barry, even Mark Hunt, Simi Schilt, these guys are highly touted strikers. These guys are amazing strikers. You know, they're the best strikers in the division. Blah, 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 always. Like, look at Pat Barry. Nobody wants to strike with that guy, and he was a subpar, mid-level guy in the K1 circuit. Alistair Overeem, if you go back and you watch his 2010 championship run, the guys that Peter Arts is a legend. He's a K1 legend. Just so many knockouts, so many big wins. Beat some guys that wasn't supposed to beat. Just a legend. And Overeem just destroys him. The guy he put Kazuchika Fujita in a mini coma with a knee. You know, a guy that previously thought to be like unknockoutable. Put him in a mini coma. Walk through the heavyweights in K1. You have to say that he's the best striker in MMA history.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. We've had this discussion before. We had a good 3-minute argument about how he was the best striker or whatever. It comes down to me is I'm kind of leaving it to the debut. Is what it comes down to for me. I'm kind of leaving it to his UFC debut. I want to see how good a striker he is. And I want Alistair Overeem to win. I don't like Brock Lesnar. I want to see Alistair win, but I want to see how good his striking will stay, is what I'm saying. And when I bring this up is, Alistair just left Golden Glory. He left the team that took him where he's at today. And he leaves Golden Glory on bad terms and comes over, and he's basing this training camp at Extreme Couture. He's not saying he's staying there. He's just saying this is where his camp is this time. Extreme Couture is a good camp. They got a good striking coach in Ron Frazier, but you gotta think that he's leaving what he's been used to, where he's got his training at the most, where he's done this, where he's done that, and he's going to a whole different camp. Now these guys have to try to take his style and either adjust it to their fitting or try to teach. It's like the teacher trying to teach themselves how to teach Alistair to keep fighting the way he does.
Right.
Because it's really hard to do that. And of course, striking knowledge comes with you your whole life. You're going to carry the stuff, but you're walking into your big fight in the UFC is your first one. And I'm not saying big fight as far as talent on the other side of the cage. I'm talking about big fight because everybody's got their eye on you. You don't want to go in there looking like some kind of chode.
And a whole bunch of people want Brock Lesnar to win.
Right. There are still a lot of people out there that really like Brock. And I'm not saying that it's bad that he's in the UFC. He brings a lot of new fans in. He brought a lot of people from the wrestling world over who really cared about him there. And I'm not saying Brock hadn't held his own. He has. He's learned even in the short, career that he's had, he's held his own. And that's because of his sheer size. And you can't deny that it's brought him where he's at. And you can't deny that he has developed some kind of skill since coming into MMA. He has a good coach up at Minneapolis teaching him. It's the same coach that Sean Shirk has. These guys all train together. They bring in the best guys to train with Lesnar. It's not like he gets like a handful of freaking 6'5" Minnesota huntsmen to come in there and freaking train with him. He brings in Pat Barry. He brings in these guys to make himself better. And like I said, I'm not a huge Brock Lesnar fan, but I am kind of excited to see him get better and see if he does get any better. If we do watch Brock Lesnar come in and look like an elite MMA fighter, I would be pleasantly surprised. And I would be pleasantly surprised to the point that I really kind of want to watch him fight again because it's a whole different advantage. I mean, when you've seen him knock Randy out, the dude's got ham hocks for hands. You can't stop him. Randy's kind of old. And that's no excuse for Randy. The dude's a stud, and he just got beat up by a guy bigger than him. And that's part of Randy's, that's part of Randy wanting to go to the heavyweight division. You got to deal with that, with that weight difference. I mean, there's not a middle division there, so you got to deal with walking into a fight at 227, fighting a guy that's walking in there at probably 275 to 280.
Yeah,
he's huge. Yeah. So really, that's what makes this fight intriguing to me, is to see if Lesnar really has gotten any better. He's been off for quite a while now, especially with the diverticulitis, and I want to see what he's going to bring to this table. I want to see what he's going to bring to the heavyweight division. And you got to see what's going to be it for the winner of this fight, because my guess is we're probably going to see this as a number one contender fight. And
you got to almost.
Yeah, I mean you have to. Cain Velasquez just lost the fight. Shane Carwin's still out. He went and had some back surgery done, and I think he's going to be out for just a little while longer. You don't have any other heavyweights right there on that cusp to take a title shot. So you've got Alistair, you've got Brock. Both these guys are wanting to make a statement, especially Overeem in his first fight in. But then you got to start looking down the road. And as much as I realize that Dos Santos is a great guy and he's a great personality for the UFC heavyweight division, he's especially with the Fox primetime show they showed. It really gave a side of both those fighters that not a lot of people get to see, that they're just normal guys that are really nice and really dedicated to their family and this and that. But JDS showed something in that fight that he can swing, and you gotta watch out for him. Like, it's not like one of those things anymore where you can't not pay attention to JDS anywhere.
Yeah.
Especially on the feet. The dude's pretty limber, he's pretty fast, but he throws these devastating uppercuts and body shots that if you get tagged with one, it's almost 90-night.
Yeah.
So now, and JDS isn't necessarily a huge dude. He weighed in at like 238 pounds, and with Brock or Alistair coming to fight this guy, that brings a whole nother fight for me to want to watch, because I want to watch JDS fight either one of those guys at any point.
Yeah. Going to take us back a couple bars here. I think the move that Alistair made to Extreme Couture was a good move, because when you look at the trainers, at Golden Glory, especially Core Hammers, which is legendary trainer. Raymond Decker's also as far as the circuits go, like in Thailand, like the bare knuckle Muay Thai stuff, Raymond Decker's is the man with that stuff. But if you look at Golden Glory as a whole, they are a striking camp. They are a camp geared towards, we are going to knock you out. Heavy focus on striking from Golden Glory. If you look at Extreme Couture, founded by Randy Couture, of course, a wrestler. You got guys that are like Gray Maynard. They're more of a grappling.
Who just left, by the way? Gray Maynard just left the camp.
Gray.
I just found that out like a couple weeks ago. He just left to go. I don't really know where he's going. As a matter of fact, he just said it was an amicable split from the camp, and he thought that he needed to go somewhere else and get some other kind of training.
After that loss from Frankie Edgar, he's probably going down to the loo to throw down a couple PBRs after that loss.
Just in case you don't know, the loo is our local bar in town that is a complete shithole and makes you feel...
Watch it. Easy.
It will make you feel like you're the worst piece of shit if you walk in there.
Unless you want a staph infection. So Big Nog probably hangs out down there. Anyway... Yeah. Anyway, Extreme Couture is more of a grappling-focused camp. So, for Alistair at this point, I think Golden Glory has carried him as far as they can with the striking. He's already the best striker in the world. With the heavyweight title from K1. I'm not backing down on that. Already the best striker in the world. So the move over to a grappling camp in order to fight a strong grappler, I think was a wise one. And I think it's the root behind the whole him saying, I don't know if I'm going to stay there or not. I think he probably made the move just to prepare for a strong grappler like Brock Lesnar. So I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see Alistair Overeem stuffing Brock Lesnar's shot. I think Brock Lesnar is probably going to come out with some half-assed game plan where he's going to he's not going to come right after. He's gonna stand and bang with Alistair Overeem. Then he's going to go after it. Blah blah blah. Like, no, we're going to see Alistair Overeem cleaning house for however long the match lasts. And also another fact that a lot of my fellow armchair MMA champions don't realize is that Alistair Overeem was the 2005 ADCC European qualifier. He beat everybody over there. When you look up his videos and stuff, you'll be like, who are these guys? He's fighting black belt level guys in a no-gi competition. So he has that win over submission win over Vitor Belfort, who's well known as a longtime black belt now. I don't know how long he's had his black belt, but he's not a newcomer to the elite of the grapplers. And Alistair Overeem tapped him out. That was a 205, of course. But so I mean, either way, even if Lesnar comes out and gets his blast double and takes it down, he's not necessarily out of the water, because he's not going to have this massive power advantage over Alistair Overeem like he does everyone else.
Yeah, your opinion is it's just like mine is. It's all in what we think. If you really want to go a little in depth, and this is just for you because I don't think I've ever talked to you about this, and this is just for the people that listen. If you really want to get an idea, and it depends on whose side of the story you want to go with, look up an article on mixedmartialarts.com about either, I think it's Mixed Martial Arts or MMA Junkie, either one. You can check it out. Go search for it. A Boss Rutan interview about Lesnar's departure from Golden Glory.
Overeem's departure.
Oh, who'd I say?
You said Lesnar.
Ah, jeez.
Who never trained at Golden Glory.
Yeah. Who never even is close to there. He's probably barely been out of Minnesota, and that's only because he had to go on the road with WWE. Anyway, the point of the matter is, if you want to hear, and don't get me wrong, I'm an Overeem fan, and I really enjoy watching him fight. But when it comes to personal matter, go to one of those two sites that I talked about, Mixed Martial Arts or MMA Junkie. Check out the article of Boss Rutan's interview. They brought up the Overeem departure from Golden Glory, and Luke knows as well as me, we're big Boss Rutan fans anyway. We like Boss Rutan. We like what he has to say, but Boss Rutan really has the inside scoop when it comes to that gym. He's a lot of his friends are coaches in that gym. And
he used to train with Core Hammers when he was in of course I draw a blank. On air.
In Pancrase?
In Pancrase, yeah.
Okay.
Train with Core Hammers in Pancrase.
Those guys are all good coaches and good friends there. And somebody brings up the departure to Boss Rutan, and I think he kind of explodes and gives you the whole backstory that Overeem doesn't tell you, and gives you everything that goes along with it. And I'm not trying to put Overeem in the ground. I'm not trying to make you look at him. I'm not trying to make you look at him different. But what I'm saying is just look up the article and read all the things that go along with Alistair leaving Golden Glory, because it's a lot to think about, and you think about how greedy somebody can be when it comes to money. And I'm not trying to say that to bash, because I still like Alistair. I don't care, in all honesty, where you train your camp at. But if what Boss says is true, that really is a big shit on by Overeem to everybody on his team.
Yeah.
So I advise you to go check it out and read through the interview, and just check it out for yourself, just to see.
I believe after that interview, Overeem came out and said that he was getting screwed all the time when it comes to money. I think he said that he still, Golden Glory still never gave him the money that K1 paid, because one of the reasons that Dana White said that he was never going to deal with Golden Glory again was because how they work is K1 pays Golden Glory, and then Golden Glory pays Alistair Overeem. And Dana White didn't want to deal with that. He wanted to pay Overeem directly. But Overeem said that he had a whole bunch of problems getting Golden Glory to pay him for his championship in K1. He never got the money for. He said some of his pride fights he never got the money for.
And I'm not saying it, but a lot of this would, and I mean, it's for that instance, K1 tanked. K1 was having financial issues anyway. So the problem becomes, I understand that Alistair does the fight or whatever, but on a trainer's level, those guys most of the time do it for the love of the sport. And they don't make a lot of money to train fighters. So if they're not getting paid, if Golden Glory's not getting paid, especially if Alistair's not getting paid and he's wanting to, and the trainers aren't getting paid, then that sucks for both sides. And that's what a lot of people don't see is like, you can make a big stink about not getting paid through your management company, but you also can't make a big stink about not getting paid through them if the organization you fought through isn't paying your management.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, go read it. It really is an eye-opener. It was for me when I read it, because I take Boss Rutan's word pretty seriously, especially when I know that he has the connection with that camp, being as they're all from the same region. I think that's it for today. I think we're going to go ahead and try to wrap this up. I hope it wasn't too run on for you. It's really our first take on the show. Hopefully here in the next couple weeks, like I said, we'll get a Facebook page up. Hopefully we'll get a Twitter, and we'll kind of give you more updates as things come along. We'd like to get more sections put into the show. YouTube channel as well too. I think we'll probably keep it the same name, I'd assume. It just makes it easier for everybody else to go look at. We'll have a YouTube channel where it won't be a very long show. It'll be a short show that we may shoot at a different location every time, just because my work schedule is so screwed up, and it's hard to get together with everybody with Mike doing the recording and Luke doing nothing.
Like I said, I don't have a job. I can do this anytime.
But if
you want to talk MMA, come over to my apartment.
We just it'll just be like a short, probably 15-minute show. We're not really going to go into the discussions that we go to on here. Just kind of make a point and kind of keep track of our records and how we pick the fights. But definitely we'll get those put up for you. We'll take any feedback, really. So when we get this, when we get our Facebook page put up, we should have it put up by the time the podcast is out. I'm sure we'll go ahead and make it real quick. We'd really love your feedback, and pass the word along. It's just something that we like to do for fun, and we'd like to know that people listen to it and kind of take our opinions seriously, and they really kind of agree with us or disagree with us or just have a good time listening. So definitely stay tuned, and we will hopefully be back. Once we get this podcast put up, we'll be back 2 weeks from that day, and really that's all we got for today.
Brendan, before we go, did you know that when Golden Glory first started and they first put up their website, that our very own producer, Mike Schrone, built that website for them?
He built the website for Golden Glory. I'm telling you what, every week you're going to find out, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to ramble on here at the end. Every week you're going to find out more and more tidbits and facts about our producer, Mike Schrone, and how awesome he is to this society. Because if it wasn't for the little things in life that you take for granted, all that happened because of Mike Schrone. And I'm serious. Every week you're going to learn. It's like 2 or 3 every show. We're just going to throw something out there for you. So until next time, I definitely want to thank Mike for putting the effort and time into this. I want to thank Luke for being my partner here on the show. And I want to thank you all for listening. So from us here at the show,